My name is Cindy Finn. I'm the Director of Student Services at the Westerby Pearson School Board, and I also sit on the interlevel education table, ILET. So I'm involved with this great committee and happy to be your moderator today. The title of this session is Regional Outreach Through Art, Health, Community Building, and Indigenous Initiatives. So we're going to begin this morning with a presentation on the Community Learning Center Initiative. So it's my pleasure to introduce Debbie Horrocks. Debbie is the director of the Provincial Resource Team, known as the PRT, at LEARN, which stands for the Leading English Education and Resource Network. Her team supports the Community Learning Center Initiative, and this is a network of 86 schools we learned this morning, 86 English language schools that are spread throughout the province. The PRT provides coaching, mentoring, capacity building, and professional development to CLC leaders. Debbie has worked in community development with the English linguistic minority community for over 20 years. Please join me in welcoming Debbie Horrocks.
Hi everyone. It was great to hear all the shout-outs for the CLCs. I'm very passionate about the CLCs. It was great to hear all the shout-outs this morning. As Cindy mentioned, I'm from LEARN. I'm a director at LEARN and I manage the Provincial Resource Team. LEARN's a non-profit organization that provides educational resources and services to youth and educators in the English public and private school systems across the province. We have three departments, or three divisions that we work with. The Provincial Resource Team is the most recent addition to LEARN's lineup. We provide a variety of centralized support to the CLC network of 86 schools. This includes in-person and virtual training, creation of tools and resources for CLC teams. The PRT also has some amazing partners who collaborate with us to support student learning. We also work closely with both the PED Services team and the virtual campus teams within LEARN. They have expertise, which we do not, and can offer resources to our CLC leaders. Things like teacher training and free workshops and tutoring, teacher training and free workshops, and free tutoring for students. It's important to note that all of LEARN's resources and services are offered free of charge. And we're funded through the Canada-Quebec Entente. A community school is both a place and a set of partnerships between the school and other community resources. By collaborating with partners and service providers who have common goals, CLCs help prepare students for the challenges and opportunities of today and tomorrow. Given the great diversity of our schools and our communities across Quebec, it was understood from the start that taking a one-size-fits-all approach to implementing CLCs would not work, and Kate mentioned that this morning. CLCs look different in each school board, and that's because each CLC is tailored to address the specific needs of the local community and, that it's in. This is a quote, goes back to 2002 about community schools, so we like to call ourselves the Community School Network of Quebec. A little bit of historical. In 2005, the Quebec Ministry of Education action plan supported the development of community schools. About a year later, the CLC initiative came to be, with 14 schools and 1 adult center. They were inaugurated with the goal of becoming hubs for education and community development in the English-speaking communities they serve. And 12 years later, this is the reality in many of our schools in many of our regions. CLCs are a means of helping English schools develop and solidify partnerships within their communities. In 2016, CLC management was transferred to the school boards, and the PRT was integrated into LEARN. But we still maintain the mandate of supporting the CLC network. So 12 years ago, we were supporting 15 schools. Now we're supporting 86. So It's certainly expanding across the network. Community schools are not unique to Quebec. There are community school initiatives around the world. In fact, much of the research and data that we have available to support the ongoing development of the Clc approach is from the Coalition for Community Schools and the New York Children's Aid Society in the US. There is a real lack of research that exists on the initiative in Quebec or in Canada. There's considerable evidence that the holistic approach of the Community School Initiative supports students throughout their lifelong learning journey and contributes to their engagement and overall educational success. Community schools offer an integrated approach to academics, health and well-being, youth and community development, and community engagement, which leads to improved student learning, stronger families, and healthier communities. CLCs have a dual mandate. They have since the start, supporting student success and contributing to helping increase the vitality of English-speaking communities. And that's because they're federally funded through Canadian Heritage. So part of the challenge that we face, that CLCs face, is school boards don't always see community vitality as part of their role, but we believe the two are very tightly interwoven. So what's a CLC school? It's an approach to school and community improvement. It's a strategy that enriches learning, contributes to increased student engagement, and an improved sense of well-being and belonging. Each CLC school has a community development agent in the middle there, or we call them CDAs, who work closely with the school principal and the various organizations and partners to bring resources and services to the students, their families, to teachers, and the community at large. The partnerships and programming that CDAs bring into the schools enhance the school climate and contribute to the social, emotional, and academic well-being of students. And students learn best when they are in environments in which they feel safe, supported, challenged, and accepted. CLCs take a systemic approach to changing school climate and culture by developing partnerships around common outcome areas. The PRT supports CLC schools by developing strategies related to increasing parent and family engagement. It's probably our newest strategy that we're introducing. And it's probably one of the single most important factors in helping students succeed in school, is parent engagement. We offer training and resources to help CLCs strengthen collaborative practices that support the relationship between schools and families, and our strategies are in alignment with both the NIE's policy on educational success and the strategy for children from birth to age 8. We also support strategies around health and well-being. We've been collaborating with the Community Health and Social Services Network, or CHSSN, for more than a decade to bring needed resources and services to support youth and the English-speaking community at large. CHSSN has, where CLCs have CDAs, CHSSN, in the audience, have what they call NPIs. So they're tasked with, where our CDAs work in education, the NPIs, networking and partnership initiative, support in the area of health and well-being. Most recently, one of our joint projects has been focusing on the mental health needs of students, families, and school staff. We also work at encouraging early childhood programming into CLC schools. And because of this, many of our schools are seeing an increase in their enrollments. CLCs offer programs such as Mother Goose. It's a pre-literacy program for moms and babies. Books to Belly, one that down in the Eastern Townships, which integrates literacy with cooking and nutrition. The availability of these types of programs contributes to school readiness and helps decrease the isolation of young families. Education for Reconciliation. The PRT has been putting resources into the hands of teachers to help them improve their classroom teaching practices on this subject, and that's very relevant today. We were actually The CLC network received a shout out, for lack of another word, from Paris, Canada, when they did their report card on how school boards or provinces were integrating recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation report into their curriculums. And there was a shout out. Quebec received a failing grade at the time, about 3 years ago. And the CLCs were mentioned as one of the bright lights in that area. We also offer intergenerational programming, which helps decrease the isolation of English-speaking seniors. They come into the schools, they share their stories, they share their knowledge and experiences with the students, and that intergenerational aspect is really quite exciting. So what's really behind the success of CLC schools? Well, it's all about collaboration and developing relationships to bring programming, resources, and services that will engage and benefit the students and families and the wider community. I mentioned our CDAs. It's a unique resource for the CLC schools. And we like to think that they have one foot in the school and one foot in the community. They participate on local tables of development, or table de concertation, to represent the needs of the school and the community. And they're often the only Anglophone voice at these tables. Many of the organizations most of the organizations sitting around those tables have the mandate and the funds to support resources and programming which will benefit students, families, and the community at large. But if you're not there, you're not going to get your share of the pie. So it's important that our CDAs are there. CLC is a shared leadership approach. The principal, the CDA, the school staff, and community partners collaborate to develop, to implement, and to evaluate the CLC action plan. No one person does everything, though. And our CLC action plans are always data-driven and aligned with both the school educational project and the school board's commitment to success plans. They're always driven by the needs of the school and the needs of the community. There are 3 CLC models that the PRT and the school boards are currently supporting. We have a single site, which is one school, one vision, one plan, and a small number of CLC leaders. We have multi-sites where you have multiple schools, multiple communities, multiple visions, multiple plans, and multiple CLC leaders working independently from one another, but for some reason the school boards see this as a way to sort of, I guess, spread the resource, the CDA resource. And then we have the extended model, which are multiple schools, usually within the same region, but not always, serving the same community, which are often feeder schools. And together they come up with one vision and one plan and shared strategies and activities. Benefits of the CLC approach for students. We've been tracking data from the CLC schools for over 12 years, and here are a few of the things that the data is telling us about benefits for the CLC approach for students. CLC schools offer more extracurricular activities and out-of-school time learning opportunities for students, and students tend to have a greater sense of belonging to their school. CLCs offer activities and programs for parents and families to participate in school life, and research shows that family engagement is one of the strongest predictors of children's school success. Greater community involvement also brings in an increase in financial and material donations and more volunteers into the school. Improving in addition to improving school climate, our data also indicates that student outcomes are improving, and students are more engaged in school. And when kids are engaged in their learning, they want to be in school, and when they're in school, they have a greater chance of being successful and graduating. School community partnerships help teachers leverage resources and integrate real-world learning opportunities into the classroom by implementing community service learning projects. It's a teaching strategy that uses the local community as a learning resource, essentially allowing the students the opportunity to apply what they learn in the classroom to address real community needs. The experiential nature of CSL projects allows all students to shine and experience success hands-on. And the one thing about CSL projects is they're all connected to the QEP, so it's not an add-on to the teachers. Community vitality outcomes. schools are often the last, and Kate mentioned it this morning, the last English institution in many communities, and therefore they play a key role in contributing to the vitality of these communities. The diversity of partnerships created and maintained through the CLC initiative has helped the voices of the English community be heard and help position English school boards as both educational and community leaders. We're also seeing an improved collaboration between the two language groups, and this results in increased support from the majority group, which is one of the indicators of the indicators for community vitality identified in the 2013 Canadian Heritage Community Vitality Framework. Some unexpected results. CLCs and CDAs have created favorable conditions for building collaborative partnerships between the Anglophones and Francophones. There's been, in many of our regions, a real strengthening of the ties between the two linguistic communities. Organizations and government agencies are now inviting the English-speaking community to collaborate on a regular basis, both provincially and locally. So in conclusion, what I would say the keys to CLC success, and I've been hearing about CLCs in the various workshops that I've been attending over the past couple of days. PRT support certainly is critical for training, for tools, for resources. There's often a revolving door of principals and community development agents, so there's always a need to build their capacity. The CLCs align the services based on the needs of the community through reciprocal school-community partnerships, strong collaboration between the school principal and the CDA, and support from the school board. That's really critical. We have a great relationship with our school boards. And finally, I guess the strength of the network. They really support each other. They're a network of 48 community development agents in 85 schools, and they are a very tight group who work together and share opportunities and resources and best practices.
Thank you very much, Debbie. We're going to move on now to hear about a program operating at McGill, so a university example of outreach looking at a health and social service community leadership bursary program. So I'm going to invite Amélie, our next presenter, to come up. Amélie Lampron is an anthropologist and research professional involved in several evaluation studies within Dr. Marie-Pierre Gagnon's team. Dr. Gagnon is at the Université Laval. Amélie was in charge of projects carried out under the mandate of McGill University with respect to the training and retention of health professionals. These projects focused on the evaluation of the McGill Health and Social Services Community Leadership Bursary Program. So please join me in welcoming Amélie Lampron.
Hi everyone, as you may see, the PowerPoint is in English, but the presentation is going to be in French, but do not hesitate to ask your question in English. Donc, je suis ici aujourd'hui pour vous présenter en fait les résultats d'une étude évaluative qui a été menée de concert avec le chercheur Marie-Pierre Gagnon de l'Université Laval, en collaboration avec le projet de formation et maintien en poste des professionnels de la santé de l'Université McGill. Donc, je vais vous mettre à la table pour vous expliquer en fait où a pris naissance cette initiative qui en fait est en cours depuis 2011 déjà. Donc, c'est vraiment, on assiste déjà depuis quelques années à une pénurie des professionnels de la santé dans les communautés d'expression anglaise du Québec, qui est une incidence vraiment directe de la régionalisation des services de santé et également des changements socio-démographiques qui sont survenus au cours des dernières années. Puis, suite à ce constat-là, en fait, face à ce constat de pénurie, le projet de formation et de maintien en poste des professionnels de la santé de McGill s'est mobilisé en 2011. Et cette mobilisation, en fait, a pris forme sous le développement, sur la mise sur pied, en fait, d'un programme de bourse qui visait à maintenir en poste les professionnels de la santé dans les communautés d'expression anglaise du Québec. Donc, c'est un projet, en fait, c'est justement le programme que je viens vous présenter aujourd'hui. Donc, qui s'adresse à qui? C'est ce que je vais vous expliquer en fait. Donc, c'est vraiment un programme de bourse qui s'intitule Programme de bourse de leadership communautaire en santé et services sociaux, qui qui est destiné à tous les étudiants qui poursuivent des études à temps plein dans des programmes dans le domaine de la santé, dans les établissements d'enseignement qui sont reconnus par le gouvernement du Québec. C'est admissible à des étudiants tant de niveau secondaire, on entend ici par la formation professionnelle, de niveau collégial et universitaire. Les étudiants en fait qui sont admissibles à ce programme de bourse doivent avoir une connaissance appropriée tant de l'anglais que du français. Ils doivent également s'engager à rester ou à retourner dans une des régions ciblées par le programme de bourse. Donc, c'est un programme qui offre deux catégories de bourses. Donc, il y a des bourses de catégorie 1 qui offrent des bourses à des étudiants qui vont aller étudier dans une région autre que leur région d'origine, puis qui vont justement devoir s'engager à retourner dans la région à la fin de leurs études pendant une période d'1 an après leur graduation, ou à rester dans la région, donc soit les étudiants qui ont reçu une bourse qui est de catégorie 2, pour laquelle ils s'engageaient à demeurer dans leur région justement le temps de leurs études, parce que c'était possible pour eux, mais également à rester travailler dans cette région à la fin de leurs études. On dit pour une période d'1 an pour chaque bourse reçue. Donc, si un étudiant recevait par exemple plus d'une bourse, 2 bourses ou 3 bourses dans le cadre de ses études, devait s'engager pour chaque bourse à rester 1 an dans la région. Donc, l'objectif vraiment principal de ce programme de bourse était d'encourager les professionnels de la santé à travailler dans le système de santé dans justement une communauté d'expression à l'aise du Québec. Pour vérifier en fait l'efficacité de ce programme-là qui a été mis en place en 2011, on a eu un premier mandat, Marie-Pierre, Gagnon et moi, de réaliser une première évaluation de l'efficience de ce programme-là en 2014 à la demande du projet de formation maintien en poste des professionnels de la santé de McGill. Les premiers constats en fait qui ont été révélés, c'était une efficacité générale du programme de bourse, c'est-à-dire un respect des engagements, des conditions du programme de bourse. Et le second point, c'est vraiment une absence de mécanisme de suivi formel. Donc, ce qui en est un petit bémol sur les résultats qui avaient été justement manifestés dès le départ, donc c'est-à-dire l'efficacité générale. Donc, ce qu'il y a en fait, c'est qu'on se rendait compte au cours du programme de bourse, qui est justement parrainé par des réseaux communautaires dans chacune des régions qui sont impliquées dans le programme de bourse, qu'il n'y avait pas nécessairement de mécanisme de suivi qui permettait aux réseaux communautaires de faire un suivi systématique de leurs récipiendaires tout au long de leur programme d'études afin de s'assurer que les conditions du programme soient respectées et qu'à la fin suite à leur graduation, ces étudiants-là allaient bel et bien travailler dans les régions ou demeurer dans leur région pour offrir des services de santé à leur communauté. Donc, suite à ce constat-là, en fait, on a développé un mécanisme de suivi formel en 2015 qui consiste en des formulaires électroniques qui sont remis à tous les réseaux communautaires participants impliqués dans le programme de bourse de McGill, afin de les inviter à contacter chacun de leurs récipiendaires 2 fois par année, soit chaque semestre scolaire. Ça, c'est pour les étudiants qui, en fait, sont toujours inscrits aux études, afin de valider avec eux s'ils sont toujours aux études à temps plein, s'ils sont toujours inscrits dans un programme dans le domaine de la santé, valider leurs coordonnées, ces choses-là. Ce suivi-là permet également de faire le suivi des étudiants, des récipiendaires qui sont gradués. Donc, 6 mois après leur graduation ou 1 an après leur graduation, afin de s'assurer qu'ils sont bel et bien retournés dans leur région. Si oui, quels sont les motifs, est-ce qu'ils ont l'intention de poursuivre, et sinon, quelles sont les raisons qui ont fait en sorte que justement ces étudiants-là ont pu retourner dans les régions. Donc, on a poursuivi ce suivi-là, on l'a testé au fil des années avec les étudiants, les récipiendaires de 2014 jusqu'à 2018. Puis en 2017, soit l'an passé, le projet de formation maintien en poste de l'Université McGill nous a dit peut-être que maintenant on a assez de données pour, le mécanisme de suivi est quand même bien mis en place, on pourrait peut-être retourner auprès des étudiants, des récipiendaires 2011-2014 afin de faire une seconde évaluation, puis voir si justement le programme a été efficace. Parce que lors de la première évaluation en 2014, il est entendu que plusieurs des étudiants, plusieurs des récipiendaires n'avaient pas encore terminé nécessairement leurs études. Donc, c'était difficile de dire oui, c'est vraiment efficace. Les étudiants, oui, étaient peut-être encore aux études à temps plein, mais très peu étaient sur le marché du travail ou avaient terminé leurs études pour se rendre jusque-là. Donc en 2017, on disposait de davantage de données pour nous permettre d'aller collecter, en fait, d'aller mesurer l'efficience du système, du mécanisme qui a été pris du programme de bourse. Donc les données de cette deuxième étude évaluative-là ont été collectées entre le mois de mai et le mois d'octobre 2017 et se concentrer sur les réseaux communautaires et les régions qui étaient impliquées dans le programme de bourse pendant la période 2011 à 2014. Donc en Estrie, en Outaouais, Côte-Nord, Gaspésie, Île-de-la-Madeleine, Chaudière-Appalaches et Montérégie. Donc je vous ai dressé un petit portrait en fait des récipiendaires 2011-2014. Pendant cette période-là, le programme de bourse de leadership communautaire en santé et services sociaux a octroyé un total de 60 bourses, donc à 60 récipiendaires différents. Donc nous, pour faire la collecte de données, on a conçu en fait 60 formulaires qui étaient destinés à chacun des récipiendaires en demandant au réseau communautaire de les transmettre aux récipiendaires afin qu'on puisse collecter les données et faire le suivi de ces personnes-là. Sur les 60 récipiendaires, on a eu un retour de 49 formulaires complétés qui nous ont été retournés et 11 pour lesquels on n'a pas réussi à obtenir l'information. Donc, sur les 49 formulaires complétés, donc des 49 participants, 41 récipiendaires ont affirmé avoir gradué, donc depuis avoir l'obtention de leur bourse, et 8 récipiendaires étaient toujours aux études. Sur les 11 formulaires pour lesquels on n'a pas réussi à obtenir de réponse, il y a 3 récipiendaires qui ont affirmé en fait avoir abandonné leurs études, 2 récipiendaires on n'a pas pu retracer leurs coordonnées et 6 récipiendaires qui n'ont jamais répondu. Donc c'est sûr que, étant donné que le mécanisme de suivi formel a été implanté seulement en 2015, qu'il n'y en avait pas eu auparavant, ça peut expliquer pourquoi certains récipiendaires de 2011 à 2014, il n'y a pas eu de suivi nécessairement qui ont été faits, qu'on ait perdu la trace. Mais c'est en fait ce que souhaitent éviter les initiateurs du programme de bourse parce qu'on veut vraiment être en mesure de suivre le trajet, la trajectoire des récipiendaires tout au long de leur parcours, même une fois les études terminées. Donc ici, je vous présente une répartition en fait des récipiendaires de 2011 à 2014 en fonction de leur statut. Donc, comme je l'ai mentionné là, dans le tableau précédent, il y a 41 quand même sur les 49 qui ont répondu qui sont gradués, mais ils proviennent essentiellement de la région de la Gaspésie des îles de la Madeleine. C'est vraiment la région où il y a le plus de récipiendaires pour la période 2011-2014. Ensuite, on peut constater également qu'il y a davantage de bourses de catégorie 1 qui ont été octroyées. Donc, catégorie 1, ce que je vous expliquais tout à l'heure, c'est des bourses qui ont été octroyées à des étudiants qui vont étudier à l'extérieur de leur région pour ensuite revenir travailler dans la région d'origine. Donc, il y a quand même une grande majorité. Et la majorité des bourses octroyées en 2011-2014 étaient à des étudiants de niveau universitaire. Parmi, en fait, là, je vous dresse un aperçu général. Sur les 49 récipiendaires qui ont répondu, provenaient de 18 programmes d'études différents. Et la majorité étaient ou sont toujours inscrits en fait à un programme d'études en sciences infirmières, 35%. C'est vraiment la majorité des étudiants qui sont inscrits dans ce programme-là. Puis la plupart d'entre eux sont originaires de la Gaspésie, des îles de la Madeleine ou de la région de l'Outaouais. La médecine et les sciences biomédicales sont également les deux autres, je dirais, programmes d'études les plus populaires, où il y a le plus d'inscriptions parmi les récipiendaires de ce programme de bourse. Ensuite, qu'en est-il de ces 49 personnes-là? Comme je l'ai mentionné tout à l'heure, je vais descendre un peu plus et expliquer leur parcours. Donc, sur les 41 récipiendaires qui ont gradué, il y en a 34 qui, au moment où on a fait l'évaluation, occupaient un emploi et 7 qui demeuraient toujours sans emploi depuis la fin de leurs études. Sur ceux qui occupaient un emploi, 26 travaillaient dans une des régions ciblées. Donc, c'est vraiment ce qui est demandé par le programme de bourse. Alors que 8 avaient occupé un emploi, mais pas nécessairement dans une des régions qui étaient ciblées par le programme de bourse. Je vais vous expliquer par après les raisons pour lesquelles ces personnes-là ne travaillent pas nécessairement dans une région qui était ciblée par le programme. Sur les 7 qui demeurent actuellement sans emploi, 4 ont décidé de retourner aux études. Donc certains avaient quand même eu la chance d'aller travailler dans une des régions, mais pour des raisons différentes, ont décidé de retourner sur les bancs d'école. 2 ont décidé de changer de carrière en cours de route. Et l'un d'eux est en congé de maladie au moment où on a fait l'étude. Donc, je reviens sur les personnes qui occupaient un emploi. parmi les récipiendaires gradués. Donc, sur les 26 personnes qui étaient en emploi dans la région, 22 occupaient un poste à temps plein. 21 occupaient un emploi dans une institution publique. 18 avaient affirmé avoir respecté la totalité des engagements du programme de bourse. Donc, c'est pas en fait, c'est 18 sur les 26 ont respecté la totalité de leur engagement, c'est-à-dire que s'ils avaient 1 an, 2 ans à compléter dans leur région à la fin de leurs études, c'est complété. Pour les autres, peut-être que c'est seulement un 6 mois de fête ou c'est pas complété en majorité, mais c'est en voie d'obtention. Puis, on s'est également intéressé, en fait, sur la relation entre la réalisation d'un stage durant les études et les étudiants qui parvenaient à obtenir un emploi dans la région. Ici, on indique que 9 des 26 personnes qui occupent un emploi dans la région ont eu la chance de bénéficier d'un stage dans le cadre de leur parcours collégial, universitaire ou autre. Parmi ceux qui sont en emploi, mais qui ne sont pas nécessairement dans leur région, on explique que certains ont déjà, donc 2, travaillé dans une région ciblée, qui ont rempli toutes les conditions du programme de bourse, sont vraiment demeurés dans la région comme le stipulait, comme le demandait le programme de bourse, mais que pour des raisons parfois familiales ou autres, ces personnes ont été amenées à quitter la région et à se relocaliser dans un emploi, soit dans un autre domaine, soit simplement dans une autre région, parfois à l'extérieur de la province de Québec. Et 6 n'ont pas été en mesure de trouver un emploi dans leur domaine d'études dans leur région, parce que bien qu'une grande majorité soit en sciences infirmières, médecine, sciences biomédicales, certains étudient dans des domaines de la santé qui sont un petit peu moins en pénurie ou moins peut-être en demande dans leur région, ce qui fait en sorte qu'ils ont plus de difficultés à trouver l'emploi dans leur région. Par la suite. Ici, rapidement, je passe. En fait, c'était pour vous montrer que sur les 26 personnes qui travaillent dans une des régions ciblées, la très grande majorité ont la chance de travailler dans une région ciblée en étant également leur région d'origine. Donc, seulement 19% travaillent dans une région ciblée, mais qui n'est pas leur région nécessairement d'origine. Puis, 50% de ces personnes-là qui sont en emploi occupent justement un emploi dans le domaine des sciences infirmières. Ensuite, ici, je voulais vous montrer un petit peu, en fait, ceux qui avaient eu la chance de réaliser un stage dans le cadre de leur parcours scolaire. Donc, c'est essentiellement, je vous dirais, une majorité qui n'en ont pas réalisé durant leur parcours scolaire. Donc, il n'y a peut-être pas nécessairement une grande corrélation entre le fait d'obtenir justement un emploi versus le fait d'avoir réalisé un stage dans sa région d'origine. En tout cas, ce n'est pas les résultats qu'on a pu démontrer. Puis ici, je vous présente en fait sur toutes les personnes qui sont graduées mais qui n'ont pas nécessairement un emploi ou qui ne travaillent pas dans leur région d'origine, s'il y a une entente qui a été conclue, parce que généralement, les conditions du programme de bourse précisent que si un récipiendaire ne respecte pas la totalité de ces conditions, des modalités prévues par le programme de bourse, une entente doit être convenue avec le réseau communautaire afin de rembourser la portion de la bourse obtenue durant le parcours scolaire ou une autre entente avec le réseau communautaire. Ça peut être un service quelconque envers la communauté. Il y en a quand même quelques-uns pour lesquels aucune entente n'avait été conclue à ce jour. Je termine en vous disant, en fait, on avait quelques préoccupations. C'était un petit peu l'idée de l'évaluation, non seulement de souligner qu'elle était, efficace, que le programme de bourse était efficace, mais que plusieurs récipiendaires demeuraient injoignables en raison de certaines coordonnées qui n'étaient pas à jour. Donc, d'où l'importance d'instaurer un mécanisme de suivi, de l'utiliser de façon rigoureuse durant l'année afin de ne pas perdre la trace des récipiendaires et s'assurer vraiment d'une efficience du programme de bourse. Puis aussi, qui persiste toujours une zone grise pour certains récipiendaires et réseaux communautaires à l'effet de savoir quelles sont réellement les conditions que je dois respecter. Est-ce que le fait de changer de programme d'études ou de demeurer à temps partiel, c'était pas clair pour plusieurs personnes. On a eu des cas qui se sont révélés. Donc, c'est vraiment des points sur lesquels le programme de bourse va devoir travailler pour les prochaines années pour améliorer son programme. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Merci, Amélie. I'm going to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is Evie Mark. Evie is from Ivujivik in the northern part of Quebec. She has been able to travel the world thanks to her abilities as a throat singer. She is a filmmaker, and a number of her productions have been broadcast by the Aboriginal People's Television Network. She is also the editor of a practical guide to Inuit culture and I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. You can help us with that, Evie. Evie is dedicated to bridging the generational gap between Inuit elders and youth, and I can actually say I've seen this in action. She was at our school board about 1.5 years ago, and she did throat singing while having a student beatbox with her. It was phenomenal. So she really does do intergenerational work. She teaches Inuktitut and arts at Nunavik Sivunuksavut, and she's going to speak to us about that project today. Welcome, Evie.
Hi, just going to take the mic. I love having small audiences. That means I can talk a little bit about a little bit more intimate stuff. Sibulimi, John Loha Oyalama, Inutitu, Oha Hoyotsuwa, Sulitia Sonilo, Nonabimio Sayama, Edi Mark Moyama, Opigo Sutia Tomatakani, Namailit Sinoha, Natsuma, Ayong Namawalo, Tukising to Silvani, Tana Kakina, Nipisimayu, Inutitu, Oha Sotsuma. Just wanted to, you spoke your mother tongue. I should speak my mother tongue too. I went to high school. I learned about the history of Canada. Not a whole lot of information about Inuit culture, who have been in Quebec or in Canada for over 4,000 years. And there was not a whole lot of information there. Then I went to John Abbott College and I learned about the Western civilization. And it was the first time that I was introduced to another new culture. And again, there's not a whole lot of curriculum on Inuit culture. So I just want to quickly introduce I have so much to say, so I'm probably going to go everywhere. But I'm going to quickly read this. It's just a technical information about Nunavik Sivunuksavut, so I can really talk about the details in there. Nunavik Sivunuksavut is a post-secondary educational partnership between John Abbott and Nunavik, which was formally implemented last fall. The college, in collaboration with 5 major regional organizations, has developed a program unique to Quebec, which offers a 1-year course in Inuit culture, history, governance, politics, and languages. One of the primary goals of Nunavik Sivunuksavut is to provide young Nunavimio with the opportunity to understand the current cultural, socio-economic, and political context of Nunavik, as well as their region fits into a larger context of Quebec, Canada, the world. The regional organizations has developed a vision of what they believe constitute a culturally relevant education. And I really believe in that. I think finally we have to include Nunavik in our curriculum. I think that people in the education system have to understand our history first. Why are we where we are at today? Like I said, I wanted to be able to speak my mother tongue. And when I do my presentations here, obviously I want you to understand. And most of you probably don't know the history with the Hudson's Bay Company, the missionaries, the Constitutional Act of 1867, Quebec government refusing to reimburse Northwest Territories, the sovereignty residential schools, and the relocations in 1953, and so on. All of these historical stuff has impacted us as Inuit people because we have been colonized. And what Nunavik Sivunuksavut is trying to do is to give back, is to decolonize, is to saduiga, to give back our identity. And so there's not a whole lot of beautiful things that happened concerning with the relationship with Quebec. Quebec disowned the Inuit people. So therefore, the French culture and the Inuit culture, we have a very young relationship. And it only started in the 1960s when Quebec decided, oh, we want to build a dam. Oh, we found mineral resources. But beforehand, we were neglected. No communication, no health care system, no housing, no services, no administration. We were sort of thrown back and forth to Northwest Territories, the Hudson's Bay Company. Canada didn't want to take care of us to the point where the Americans said, Canada, you're doing a really bad job. And so basically, what I do at Nunavik Siwunitsavut is teach that history. Instead of teaching the Western civilization book. I mean, like, Inuit people are an oral people. We had our own form of art, which was survival art. Nothing like Michelangelo or things like that. The pyramids, the Egyptian, that's interesting history. But what's important to our history is who are we? How did we survive? What are our values? And we have a very different culture between the French, the English, and the Inuit people. Only because of one reason. Environment. So if environment dictates us, like I wasn't born and said, oh, you're Inuk now, you're gonna wear these clothes, you're gonna live the Inuit way. It wasn't like that. It was the nature that decided who I was gonna be, how I was gonna dress. And so, therefore, if environment dictates, and if our environment are different, then therefore our values are different, our languages are different, our cultures are different. And if I've been in Nunavik with my ancestors for over 4,000 years, and we were an autonomous people until all the government decided with the dog slaughter, the relocations, and everything, which you probably don't know about. Like they decided to kill the dogs in order to say, stop moving around. America said we need to work on our sovereignty. So they decided to use Inuit people as human flagpoles. The stories are very sad. The residential school. My mother was born in an igloo. She went to residential school. My stepmother was abused. She took them to court and she won because of the very bad things that were done to her. So at Nunavik Siwunitsavut, yes, we learn about the dark history, the sad history, but we also learn about taking back our identity. And I'm very proud that the John Abbott College took the initiative to finally say, let's work together. And to understand how the education system is not working up north, so let's try to find other ways. And I think that Nunavik Siwunitsavut is the first initiative to try to find solutions to an education system that is malfunctioning. Because the way it's been set up, it doesn't complement the Inuit people and the needs in the north. Oh yeah, like for example, I was very excited that OSM, Orchestre Symphonique de Montréal, they have their own Western music, classical culture. And what they wanted to do was, instead of appropriating, they wanted to go up north and learn about the people. And I think that's very important. We have to learn about each other. Because if we only started to get to know each other in the 60s, then obviously there's a whole lot of things we need to do to try to fix what's been damaged. And for example, I have to learn English. I have to do a French exit exam, for example. But why? I'm going to be serving my people up north, and so on. It just doesn't work. However, when the OSM went there, and they studied the Inuit people by listening to each other. They ate seal, they ate caribou, they ate beluga. We took them out fishing. And I was like, finally, we're working together. You're not dictating us. And that's exactly how I see John Abbott, working together like this. Finally, we're working together. Instead of an organization dictating how we're going to do it instead, because it's just not working. At Nunavik Siboney, I teach arts and Inuktitut. I teach them how to make clothing, Inuit tattooing, which were taken away by a gentleman by the name of Edmund James Peck, who also created Inuktitut writing system to the Inuit people. And he also took away a lot of stuff, our traditional practices like bisipsuk, which is a form of resolving an issue. It was our system of justice, it was our system of social, they were our psychologists, our counselors, our therapists, our police. So we would get together to do such things. And in order to try to give back their identity, I wanted to find a way to create curriculum. We don't have a whole lot. So I'm creating curriculum out of nothing in a sense, in order to start teaching Inuit students how to build the chaya. What's the theory behind it? The mathematics of it. What is the use of it? What are the stories and so on? So I have to try to find some information that were written by non-Inuit people in the past, and also to interview Inuit people. I also created this book, and I purposely wrote it just in Inuktitut. That was a statement itself. It has traditional songs, stories, bisipsuk, the ones I was just talking about. It's got love songs to children, traditional patterns, and so on. It's got, I think, 15 chapters. And it's got CDs to go with the interviews that I conducted with the elders and the interviews that I collected from Agadak Cultural Institute. And because we really do need to start developing something for our youth, so that we can be an autonomous people again, because since that was taken away from us. They needed land, the government needed control. And, but we need to do that on our own again. And the only way that we're going to do that, we have to battle the highest suicide in Canada, highest school dropout rate, the highest population with young people, and per capita, Quebec provides certain, like $3,300 something odd dollars per capita to preserve the French language. For the Inuktitut language, it's $34 per capita. So how are we going to preserve our language? Obviously, we cannot really adapt to the French and English culture. We tried by being colonized, but now we have to try to see what works in our environment with our resources that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evie. I'm now going to invite our last speaker to come up and set up. So I'm going to introduce Christy Huff. Christy is a learning and development consultant with the ACE initiative, part of the English Language Arts Network. She works as a consultant, helping organizations in the community and in the education sectors align with the needs of the people they aim to serve, to do work that achieves measurable social impact. Her education has come through studying economics, commerce, adult training and development, her master's degree in human systems intervention here at Concordia, and her experience working in and with for-profit, non-profit, government organizations, and social enterprises. And she's going to talk to us about art in school. So welcome, Christy.
That's a lot to follow, and Evie, I'm particularly moved by your work and how it intersects actually with what I need to talk about today, and the importance of art to developing cultural understanding and the future of our youth in becoming globally informed citizens who can carry forward into the world with an understanding of who they are as English youth in a French province, many of whom are bilingual and need to embrace their biculturalism in the province, and who have, many of them, and also in Indigenous backgrounds. We have many students in our schools who come through an experience of living in 3 languages and needing to integrate that experience. And there's nothing better than art to help students integrate who they are and what they are learning. So to tell a backstory, about 5 years ago, I was just coming off of having a baby, leaving the Community Learning Center initiative that I used to work for from 2007, proudly developing partnerships between schools and communities and sector organizations and learning a ton from that. I happened to be at a forum facilitating a conversation where I ran into the executive director of the English Language Arts Network, who said, I keep coming to these cross-sector meetings where we talk about developing partnerships, and I want to get my network of artists better connected with schools, especially out in the regions, and I don't know how. And I said, well, sounds like you need a project. And it turned out, a few months later, another community partner sent me an email saying, there's a call for a PCH project. I think maybe the thing you were talking to me about in your meeting, you could apply for this organization, why don't you try? Guy made some phone calls to Canadian Heritage. We ended up, after 6 months of writing back and forth to them, to get funding for an initiative we call ACE. And we ran a 2-year pilot project where we brainstormed and experimented with what it would take to really develop strong arts education community projects so that artists would come into schools, work collaboratively with teachers on delivering curriculum goals, not as add-ons, not just learning about or in art, but learning through art, so the time that we were asking teachers for wasn't taking away from what they needed to do with their students, but was contributing to that, while also contributing to students developing their sense of identity. So we had a really high bar for this project. We worked a lot at trying to figure out how to make it work and learned a ton. And what I'm going to show you is a few slides, and I'm going to move through them quickly, and you can have a copy after. Because what happened at the end of all our learning was we did a mini lit review at the beginning, and at the end we did a big lit review. We had a researcher from Queens who can't be with us today. She grew up in Hudson, Quebec, and is studying arts education, and her thesis is on arts community education partnership. And she did this lit review to say, what makes arts school community partnerships work? What can we accomplish through them? And the key quote that we all have come to love is by Carla. It says, arts education partnerships in the 21st century continue to address the need for strengthening schools and communities and furthering cultural understanding while developing students' capacities for creativity, collaboration, and innovative thinking. And when we think about 21st century learning, those are things we need our students to leave school with. It's gotten less to be about what content did we need them to learn, because they can get content on the web anywhere. They need to learn to think, design thinking, creative thinking, process thinking, and that is what the arts bring. And artists model how to do that process, because the artists are experts in that kind of design and process thinking. So we aim to give students experiences of that. So as I say, we have learned from experience. We studied models across the country and in fact internationally to learn from them. This is just a small map of some of the initiatives happening just in Canada that have been working on this question of how do we do this well? How do we have artists come in and work with teachers in a way that is effective while respecting the role of skilled teachers. We're not trying to replace the teacher. We're trying to give teachers the opportunity for themselves to have a creative and new and different experience with an artist, often shifting the dynamic in their classroom just by bringing in a skilled outsider actually improves classroom dynamics, enables students who have often struggled to express themselves to take a place, shifts power dynamics amongst students in the classroom in terms of, who usually shines, and then all of a sudden a new student shines, or gets them working in teams much better. So there's all kinds of ways, and I can give a much longer list, and I have a handout. I didn't bring enough for everyone, but as I say, I have a handout and a whole lit review presentation I can show you or send to you that gives more detail on all the different impacts that bringing in artists can have on students and their learning. So, when we learn in, about, and through the arts, it can happen in school settings and it can happen outside of school settings. So for people in the room who have opportunities to apply for funding, because I'm looking at people from regional partners, there are opportunities to apply for funding federally and provincially that we have come to realize through ACE are getting very under-solicited, especially by the English community, and it's because the application processes are arduous, the deadlines are short, and as you'll see, as I say, one of our challenges at the end is how do we make this easier? What kind of support is needed so that we get more access to students having all of the kinds of artist involvement that can benefit them, from experiencing performance. So we all know seeing a play is a great and inspiring thing, and thankfully we've had Geordie Productions that's come to our schools for years and done a wonderful job at least of giving students an opportunity to see live quality performing art, for example. You have interacting artists who come in and maybe give a workshop in a school for a day. Rob Lutz comes in and he does a wonderful blues workshop with the students and they get to write a song and they feel good about that. Then you have the collaborating artist who comes in, and someone like Susan Fuda, and you can go on the ACE website and see, works with the teacher the whole year and does an exploration of identity with the students from their past, their present, and their future. It involves writing, blogging, installation art, visual art, involves their grandparents, their parents, creates something beautiful, puts a community installation in the park that it creates interaction across culture, and is something truly incredible. And you can have master instructional artists who come in and really, for your students who are at the highest level, say your senior students, really be taking them in their technical ability towards those students who need to go into fine arts and head in that direction career-wise. And of course, it has infinite potential to do economic development in communities when we develop the arts capacity. In the past, there was a model that saw, the art as the focus of student learning at the center and kind of everything else happening around the student. We've come to see, through the work we've done, and I'm going to skip some slides to get to a model that is important. So all of our research says that to make this happen, to really get to a scale of having artists, students, and teachers experiencing co-learning on a regular basis, we have to have the support of the community, we have to have the support of the home and family, the school and administration, we have to look at what's happening in the environment, have to respect what's happened historically, what's going on in government, policy, culture, and society. And I literally keep a big map of this on my wall in my office and say, who does this mean I need to talk to? Who does it mean that if we're going to get towards more of this happening long term, that we need to be having conversations with? And that's where things start. So we have conversations with someone like Scott from Y for Y and say, we need you to at least know we're doing this. And we plan to go to the CHSSN conference and have conversations with our regional partners about what is it we're going to do to help you scale what happens here and help you support your schools, and for you not to feel like you're just someone they use to get to money, but that you're a partner in meeting this goal. Because if this goal is met, students are inspired in their learning. Teachers are inspired by what happens when the students are inspired in their learning. And the artist, we often overlook the impact on artists, but artists, when they get out there in the schools, have reported having the most magical experiences of working with teachers and students. It makes what they do for a living meaningful and inspires their own artwork. And so we have to work at the level of the big picture of what's needed from policy and government, and we're actively doing that. We're fortunate to have money right now from the Secretariat for English Relations. We have an ACE model right now that is funding. We were funded for 3 to 5 schools, so we decided to fund 14 schools, and because that's how Christy rolls. I have a small team that we work with the schools. So we selected artists who had the most experience in the province collaboratively creating arts experiences with teachers, because we want every school to have a positive experience. And we heard in the past that when artists go in and they're not well prepared, schools have middling to negative experiences and don't want artists to come back in. We want schools to want an artist in every year. So we have to make sure the artists are qualified and prepared. So we have a short list of artists on our website who are the most qualified in the province to go and do this level of work. We have picked schools and educators and we're working with them. The first thing we do is work with the team and figure out a vision, who's with us, which teachers want to do something, what do you want to do, and we go from there. We match them to the artist and arts discipline on our list. And we ask them to include some opportunity for the community in their project. So that makes it a community service learning project, as Debbie was talking about. So that the community in some way gets to either have art created for them. So several of our projects are going to have large-scale outdoor art installations. Some of them are going to have grandparents in the room creating the art with them, writing, blogging. Things that are necessary to make that happen, we need a coordinator on the ground. And again, that's why I look at Debbie or at the partners from Regional Association, the MPIs. Someone has to help pull the pieces together. And so we rely heavily on having a coordinator on the ground. And without your partners, this wouldn't work. So we have a partner on the ground, and then we have a facilitator for my team. So I work with 2 other people, Jennifer Cook and Paula Knowles, and we work with each group to figure out their project. And their project goes through the 4 steps in the middle: connect, collaborate, create, and celebrate. Almost all of our projects have finished their connect phase. They've made a big, broad vision for what their project will be. We've matched them with an artist, and they're ready to roll. The ones that are most ready to roll will be starting their active creation process next month. We do need extra money from the provincial government, especially from Culture in the Schools for some, so there's some delay on a couple until we get that. But otherwise, we're on a roll. Long term, what we see as needed. If we were really to accomplish the vision of having students in our schools regularly engage in creative experiences with artists that help them to integrate their learning in the education program and about who they are, we would need support for more education leaders and artists to access the funding opportunities available. We spent a ton of time helping people just write grants this fall. More training, consulting, and coaching, just for each of the people who is involved to develop to their next level of capacity. We would need coordination capacity in communities to devote time and energy to developing local arts and cultural initiatives with schools that benefit the community. So we need community learning center coordinators. We need NPI coordinators with or expanded mandates for the community organizations to have an arts and culture person who can help and work with the schools. And finally, we need to connect with higher education students and teacher training programs to develop future capacity, people who already know how to go out and do this, so that we don't have to go back and train them after.
Thank you, Christy. So I would like to invite Christy, Evie, Debbie, and Amélie maybe to come up to the front. We do have time for questions, and we've heard about some wonderful projects, and I'm sure people want to know more. So I'll open the floor up to questions. Okay, maybe I'll start by asking a question which I think seems obvious, but I'd be really curious to get particularly Evie and Christy's comments, because we're here talking about community vitality in minority languages, and I wonder if you can talk about that power of the arts to transcend language, or in some ways even to, so Evie, like when you were talking about teaching culture, I'd assume part of it is teaching traditional songs in Inuktitut, and I'm wondering your experiences around, does that make it easier to connect to the language, or is it difficult? I'm curious to know your thoughts about the arts. This back here. Oh, just
When I teach arts, for example, I teach mask making. When I do their mask making with their actual face, with body casting, I make sure that they have a personal relationship with their own face. And so then I ask them, could you please make tattoo designs on your face as we had done, and I teach the traditional form of Inuit tattooing, which was eradicated by Edmund James Peck. And the art almost went away. It just almost permanently disappeared. And so I asked the students, could you please make lines and the designs, traditional designs, with your accomplishments. So when they do that, it becomes a very emotional relationship, because of their accomplishments may have been overcoming a suicide with their loved one, which was caused by colonization, or learning about the fact that they did bisirsuk, and learning how to perform in front of an audience in their traditional language, in their Inuktitut language. And also accomplishing with the fact that they're learning about their history, their own history, and what they went through. And so when they start doing that, it becomes a very emotional relationship, and it becomes like trying to take back their identity. And without that identity, their foundation is not going to be very stable. And so I think that arts has done a lot, because arts was a form of survival for us, and in time we called it Inuit arts. Like for example, sculpting, Inuit sculptures, they were miniature, they were amulets, which was a form of a protection, spiritual protection. Or when they were hungry, they would carve a little seal, and maybe perhaps that seal will come to life, and things like that. So actually teaching arts is actually teaching their Inuit culture.
I have a question.
Yes. Go ahead, Kathy.
Christy, the initiative you're referring to, is that an ongoing, or is it for 1 year, 2 years, like fiscally?
The ACE initiative, we are funded for 2 years. What we're trying to figure out is how we will approach year 2 versus year 1. With working with 14 schools this year, we're learning a lot about more of the functions that are needed. And we're considering, instead of outright funding specific schools next year, instead taking a capacity building approach and offering to support all of the schools who are prepared and want help to do their own sort of grant writing, etc. And it's a decision we would need to make soon, because we would need to start making that support offer, before March, so that the different funding envelopes that come available that people are well prepared for. Otherwise, we will certainly look for more funding, and that's part of us making the case. The alternative is that we repeat what we did this year, and a certain number of schools benefit, and we do the same thing over. So to be honest, we're in a period of reflection about it, Kathy, and a period of consultation. The other thing, if you guys don't mind my taking another minute, one thing I did not speak about, and I'm a bit chagrined to talk about because it's preliminary, is there's a new micro-grant program coming out, which you've probably heard about, which we are in the middle of negotiations with the federal government on, because the program as designed is so complex in its design for us to manage that we are in serious negotiation regarding how it will happen. ELAN and its French equivalent partner have been delegated the management of this federal program, but we have not yet signed the funding agreement because the conditions that they are asking of us are, in our opinion, unmanageable. But the idea would be that we would be providing small grants to every official language minority school in the country over the next 4 years through a community organization, which is why I'll be coming to see you at the CHSSN conference to discuss how on earth we make this work. Because while a well-intentioned idea, it's an administrative nightmare, and we've told them that, and so we're trying desperately to wrap our heads around how to meet a need of dispersing funds so that artists can come into schools, and it's English artists in particular, of course, across the province, while having to have community nonprofits apply for the school to bring the artist, keeping everything as simple as possible. So that's all I can say. I think I want people to be aware that it's happening, and that said, there's no questions we can answer at this point. We have another couple. We were in Ottawa last week. We have a meeting with Ottawa again in the next 10 days. We hope to have at least something to come to you with by November 20th as a proposal to the community groups to get feedback on how to make this 4-year funding program work.
See you on November 20th.
Looking forward to it.
So we've run out of time. I want to, on behalf of the group, I want to thank our 4 presenters. Obviously, although different projects, you really brought home the need for collaboration and continued dialogue, and whether it's through the arts or through training purposes, through community learning initiatives. You know, we have many ways to reach out to the community, bring the communities into our schools. And so I want to thank all 4 of you for sharing your perspectives and projects today. Thank you. Have a great lunch, everyone.